G'day, Jinx here, and welcome to my next tutorial on how to make paletted graphics for Doomwads. And like all my tutorials, they're going to be focusing on MBF21 with a heavy use of a production environment called Doomtools. Now, even though I mainly use Doomtools, there is an application called Slade, which is extremely popular. And even though I use Doomtools, it is very powerful and has a lot of great tools. And this tutorial is going to focus on some of the graphic editing tools that are inside Slade that you can use for paletting, index remapping, and stuff like that, which I still use in all my WAD creations, regardless of the fact that I mainly use Doomtools. Like, these are tools that I still use over traditional 2D graphic applications. So I think they're very powerful and well worth adding to your toolbox. Right, so let's get into this. First thing I'm going to do is make a project folder for our actual Doom WAD. I'm just going to load up the command line. Now, because this is a tutorial that's going to focus on the graphic editing software, I'm just going to, for speed, use my custom wrappers and stuff that I've gotten written to use doommake. And I did a whole tutorial on my sort of way I do my projects. Basically, I have bat files that sort of make it easier and quicker for me to use all those fancy doommake commands. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go doommake create. I'm going to call the project WAD GFX app demo, and I'm just going to make a directory for it called _ Doomtools Project. And yeah, boom. And that just creates the entire project folder for me in here. It also edits certain, puts in my custom build targets. Now, by the way, if I just go dmake update, recently, there was a really awesome update made to Doomtools. So if you go into your Doomtools, into the source, into the convert folder, it now has color maps, secondary color maps, and palettes as part of the source project file now in convert. And we'll be using that greatly, which is excellent. He also added the WAD's textures folder here as well. And like, Doomtools is an evolving project, so there's always a little bit of changes here and there. If you haven't updated your Doomtools, make sure you update it. I use dmake update, but if you go to the Doomtools webpage, you can see the full command is this command here. So just copy that and paste that in, and it just does the same thing. Okay, so once that's done, I'm just going to print out all the targets for Doomtools. If I type doommake -- targets, it's going to print out all the targets. Now, I'll have a couple of my own ones like fresh, which is something I added in, but there's a new one called rebuildpalettes. Now, because of my bat file, anytime I type dmake, that's basically the same as typing doommake. It's just faster to type. So dmake, and then we're going to paste in. Oh, sorry, I had the wrong paste. We want to get the rebuild palettes. I'm just going to go dmake rebuild palettes. And what it's done is it's looked into the WAD that we set up, which was the Doom2 WAD, and it's extracted the playpal as a PNG file, and it's extracted the color map as a colourmap.png file and placed it into our convert folders. So these new folders, if we go source, convert, palettes, we have, this is what the visualization of the palette data structure looks like. So if you're used to using Slade, you'll recognize something that looks like this. Okay, this is just the way Slade visualizes the same data by having one palette at a time that you can tab through. But the actual palette file that Doomtool uses is much more like the palette file that the color map uses. So each row is a different palette. So row 1 up the top there, that's pal 0. This bottom row here, that's PAL 13, that's the rad suit. And this really red one here that slowly gets lighter, that is the pane palettes. Okay, so it's basically just, 0 to 255, like the entire palette, one pixel after another in a big row, okay? So it's created that for us. And it's also extracted the default Doom color map, which, I talked about in the color map video. So I'm just going to make a folder out here. I'm going to call it Doom2 Orig Data. I'm just going to make a directory in there called palettes. And I'm just going to move that color map in there. And I'm also going to move the palette in there as well. And while I'm in Slade, I've got the Doom2 WAD loaded. I'm also going to extract the raw playpal palette, as well as extracting the playpal PAL0 raw palette. And while I'm here, I'll also extract the PNG version of that. This is just so I have some backup data. I've got the original color map. I've got the original playpal as a bitmap representation. Whoa, can you hear the thunders? I've got the Slade bitmap representation of PAL0, and I've also got the actual PAL files, the raw exported data. This one here has all the palette information, like all 14 palettes, and this one just has the one palette. And that's just so I've got some backup data without having to constantly reopen Slade and stuff like that. Okay, so let's get into this. The first thing we're going to do is look at some stuff in Slade. I'm just going to load up the command prompt. Now remember, we haven't done anything in our directory yet. All we've done is create the project. Now I'm just going to make this project. And there's not much it's going to create, but it is going to give us a WAD file that I can use just to demonstrate things. So I'm just going to go into my builder and I'm going to load up the release WAD. So here we are inside the WAD that we just created. And as you can see, there's nothing in it. It's completely empty. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to load up the doom2.wad and I'm going to copy from that WAD the playpal. And I'm also going to copy from that WAD the color map. And I'll just chuck them at the top of the WAD. I mainly use Doomtools for pretty much everything when I'm making my WADs. And I do most of the editing of the graphics inside 2D graphic apps. But Slade still has some incredibly powerful tools that I use all the time. And the truth is, because I don't use Slade a lot, there might be other things it can do that I don't know about. But one of the things I talked about in my texture tutorial, and that is using the patches system here to create your own virtual, in inverted commas, textures out of your texture data without actually having to create multiple textures. So here's a good example of what I'm talking about. This is a single texture that appears as a 256 texture inside your Doom. But if you look, it's actually made up of a series of patches. Okay, so these are all individual textures in the WAD that then they've just been arranged into quote unquote a virtual texture. And this is how you can have variants. So you could make, you could arrange these any way you want and make all your own textures without having to have masses and masses and masses of texture data. You can just build these virtual textures. This tool is fantastic. And you can do this in Doomtools, but it's a little bit involved. Mtrop has told me that he is planning to introduce a visual editor like this into Doomtools, but for now, this tool is unmatched. No to that. Another really powerful tools are the palette tools, and I'm going to talk about them right now. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to go to the Doom2WAD, and I'm just going to type in tro, and I'm going to grab the imp, and I'm just going to paste it in here. And I'm also going to type in CP, and I'm going to grab the chain gunner and paste him in here. And while I'm at that, I'm also just going to type in, I think it's S_, yeah, So sprites need to be between the S start and N start. So we'll just copy them in as well. These are just markers. And I'll just go boom, boom, boom. Okay. So we've basically added 2 custom sprites, but they're exactly the same as the ones inside Doom, right? Now, while I'm doing that, I'm going to right click on these and I'm going to go graphics, export as PNG. I'll go to my Doom original data and I'll just write monster sprites. And what I've done is I've exported PNG versions of these sprites. Now, what's important is, if you remember back to the palette tutorial, these are all index colors. So this is an index color map starting at index 0 and going to index 255. If you go to the Doom wiki, they've got actually a picture of the color map here that you can very easily reference. Okay. So what I'm saying is that this imp that we've copied from Doom, it's using this brown pixel here is one of the 64 to 79 pixels. Okay. And that's what we exported out. A PNG of the imp that is index colored and it's indexed to the Doom palette, which is what we're looking at here. So the browns are index number 64 to 79. So now let's have a look at some interesting tools that Slade has. Now, firstly, let's look at editing the palette itself. It's got these 2 here called Colourise and Tint. I don't find these particularly useful. I personally think, I have no proof, but I personally think these tools are sort of internal tools that Slade uses to generate all the different 13 palettes, like the Paint palettes, the Item Flash palette, and the Radsuit palette from a PAL 0. So you can edit this to whatever you want and then right click on the playpal and go palette, generate palettes, and it will just automatically make the other 13 palettes from your custom palette. And I think it does that using these tools. One of them is called Colourise, and this is basically just a tint. It just tints the entire palette. And then there's this other one called Tint, which is basically the same thing, but slightly different overlay effect, but you actually have a slider so you can change the strength. So this, for example, is a way that you can make those paint palettes. And there's another one called Invert, which I've never used, but it just inverts the colors, gets something funky. But the ones that are actually quite interesting to me is the gradient and the tweak. We'll look at the gradient first. So if I click on gradient, it brings up this little pad here where I can select any kind of color ramp inside the palette. And it just changes that color ramp to whatever the gradient I have set. So for example, if I select that entire color ramp, it goes from black to white, but the original palettes are going from white to black. So if I change this to, say, a really bright pink, and I change this one to a really dark pink, and then I OK this, it actually physically changes the palette. Okay, so now that palette is pink. So if I click on my troop now, because remember it's indexed image mapped to these values 64 to 79, right? You see now he is pink. And by changing the palette, we've changed the way all the sprites that use those index values now look. And that's why he's appearing pink. The bitmap itself has not changed at all. It's just saying load color 64 or whatever, but instead of that being brown, it's now a pink color. You've literally just changed the colors that the pixels themselves are linked to in the index color. Now the problem with the gradient map, and why I usually do it in a graphics application, is if I click gradient again, it's reset those colors. So if I like those colors here, I have to remember what colors I used and reapply them. And that can be really, really hard when you're tweaking the effects. You know what I mean? For example, if I go to make this a light blue and I add that as a custom color, and then I make this a dark blue, and I add that as a custom color, I get my new ramp, looks fine. But if I want to adjust that ramp, not only has it reset these colors back to black and white like I was saying before, it's also reset the custom colors, so you can't use them at all. Really, really frustrating. There is another better tool which does a very similar thing for color retweaking. So if I just go back into here, I'll just get rid of the playpal and I'll recopy the default one from Doom. This one here called Tweak. You can click this and it's just like the other thing. You can select a color range, but you have a hue shift. And what's interesting about the hue shift is that we are changing the color information, but we're not changing the value of it or the luminosity, which means that it's sort of respecting the initial shading. So if I set this to say a sort of purpley blue like that, and I click OK, and then I go to the troop, he should look pretty good. And there you go. He's looking basically the same, but just a new color. And you can also, I can change the luminosity if I want, make it a bit brighter, a bit darker, and you can change the saturation to make him a bit grayer, or, you know, whatever you want to do. Okay. Now what this has done is that this has physically changed the palette. Now while this guy here looks good, if I go to my chain gun, you can see it's changed his skin, but not the rest of him. But if I actually run this, you can see that any colors that are linked to those same index colors are also changed. Look at this title screen. Look at the skull. If I load it up, you can see all the wall textures, the hands changed and stuff like that. But if I just go God mode and come down here, you can see that my imp is looking pretty damn cool. Now, did you see what happened then? See how when he came into, like, if I go over here, let's get into the darkness. Come on, come find me. Come on, follow me into the darkness. See, now look, see how he's changing into the brown? That's because of the color map. So if I just tab out, if I go to the color map, you can see how changing the palettes in the pixels has changed the way the color map looks. So if you change the playpal, you need to rebuild your color maps, because the color map itself is index colored, just like the sprites, just like the textures. So changing the palette actually changes your color map. As it gets darker, it's actually changing it from the blue into these browns, which is ruining the effect. And I'll show you how to do that a bit later. But the point is, if I turn on the light filter, this basically makes the lighting go away and makes it 0, 0. You can actually see them looking fine. And we're going to import another frame of that imp, but this time we're going to import the actual PNG that we exported out, rather than just copying the lump from Doom 2 to our new WAD. You can see that it says graphic PNG. If I right click this and go graphic convert to, what this is going to do is it's going to remap the pixel data, like the indexes in the pixel data, by looking at the sRGB values and finding the closest values inside the palette that we have created and remap them to those colors. And if I hit that convert button, you can see now he's actually looking similar, a little bit different, but similar to the original guy. Because what it's done is, if we've gone into the playpal, it goes, okay, well, he doesn't match any of those colors, but you know, there's browns here, and there's some browns up here, and there's some browns down here. So it's found the closest equivalents and changed the index numbers, which are these values here, to those new browns. And that's why it's been imported, quote unquote, correctly, like more like classic Doom. And that is something you'll have to get a handle on if you want to change your palettes. You can change your palettes to anything you want, but it changes every single graphic in the game. And anything that you want to look original, you either have to make very subtle changes to the palette so they still look good even though they've changed the colors, or you need to re-import them and remap them to the new colors like we did with this image here. So I'm just going to rename this to junk data so it gets ignored, and I'll import this guy. This is another PNG. I will also convert this to the palette, and I'll just move that up like that. And now we run this. You can see, if I can kill these stupid guys, see how he's changing when he's walking towards us? Because only those frames of his animation has been remapped. Everything else is the new mapping. Walk towards me, please. There we are. Boom. Boom. Okay. But the point is, the playpal editing tools, particularly the tweak tool here, is really, really strong. But there is something that Slade has that I have not seen in any other app as well as it is in Slade. So let me just delete all these trooper guys, and I will take the entire sprite group for the trooper and I'll paste it in there. So we now have the entire troop of the original pixel data in Doom from Doom 2. And it's looking blue because we've changed the playpal map to this blue, right? So if I run that, it's basically going to look exactly the same. Okay, there we go. Okay, so this is where we're up to. Okay. So this funky thing that Slade can do is basically color remapping. And what I mean is, remember before we edited the playpal and we physically changed the palette itself, but that made all these guys look purpley blue or whatever, because we changed this brown color ramp that they were all indexed to purpley blue in the palette. But the thing is, you can actually change what the index numbers for each pixel are without affecting the palette, and that's called color remapping. So at the moment, this color, right, this is index 71. And of course, the reason why this guy is looking blue is because his pixels, one of these pixels is mapped to index 71. But when you do a remap, you, without changing the actual pixel data, changing the arrangement of the pixels, you're just changing the mapped index number. So we say, instead of being index 71, you're actually going to look at index 200. And the tools that Slade have are actually really good at this. There is a great tool inside a sprite, but it costs money. It's a pay to, like a sprite plugins are like $3 or $4. But this tool is fantastic and it works really well because it's designed completely around Doom. So basically, when you have a graphic ticked inside Doom, like highlighted, this actually here is actually got a bit of editing capacity. You've got draw pixels, erase pixels, and translate pixels, and I'll talk about them in a sec. And you also have a number of tools here. Now, like before, there's the Colourise tool, which I don't really find much of a use for. I don't really use this. And then there's the Tint tool, which is similar but allows you to sort of drag a thing. One of the really annoying things to note about Slade, though, is that all its color pickers, so if I click this color picker, this is a true color picker. This color picker is not limited to your playpal, so you have to just be careful when you're picking colors that they come out, you know, they might not be the colors you think they are. The easiest way, of course, to make sure you're using paletted colors when you're using the Slade color picker is just to, you know, open up whatever graphic apps you use and just use a color picker on your palette and just look at the values. So say I want this this brown color. You can see there's the red, green, blue here, and there's the hash number. And then you can just type those values in. And then you just go in a red, 48, 14, 7. And now that's a paletted color. There's no hash color, unfortunately. Now, unlike some of the other areas in Slade, for some reason, if you add a custom color here, it sticks for the duration of this time that you're running the Slade. So if you close Slade, you're going to lose them all. So I can actually add that as a custom color. And now we're getting better results because we're using a paletted color. But you got to remember this actual tinting, what's actually happening with the tint is that it's tinting it in RGB and then paletizing it visually on the fly. So it's actually quite hard to get colors that you want to happen, particularly with the Colourise option. So if I cancel that and I go to Colourise, I click on the guy and you can see my custom color has been remembered. That's actually a paletted color. You can see that it's coming out super dark. And if I make this light, we're now not using paletized colors, but the image we're seeing is paletized. So it's a little bit tricky to use and I don't really like it. For doing tints and recolors, I really think it's just best to do it in an sRGB graphics application. Anyway, the point is just keep an eye on the color picker because the color picker is in true color and also the way Slade applies its effects is in true color and then they're paletized. So you can get some pretty funky results that you're not expecting. But this color remap tool is awesome. So let's just click on it and have a quick look at it. So what this is saying is up here we have the original range and down here you have the target range, and it simply means whatever pixels you pick up here, this is from the original PAL 0, and you can see how it's made him all black. That's because the target range, I have the black one ticked. What I like to do when I'm doing testing is I actually set it to like a bright pink, and then I can see exactly what pixels I've selected. But you can draw ranges anywhere you want. So I could draw a range on this green ramp, which is also a 16 pixel ramp, and you can see he's turned green and he looks really good. And we haven't actually changed the playpal like we did last time. We've actually just changed what index numbers this graphic is accessing. So instead of looking at, and you can see the translation range up here, 64 to 79 equals 112 to 127. Very, very cool. And you can even do layers. So for example, if we actually look at our guy, because we only did the color ramp of that sort of brown, a couple of these browns aren't being used on his lips. So if I go make a new layer, I'm going to select the target range to bright pink so it's very visible. And if we mouse over him, if you look at the resulting palette, you can see where the pixels are. Okay, and if I sort of mouse around, unfortunately you can't make this window any larger. It's a real shame. So it's a bit hard to do, but there you go. So now you can see that his lips are the end of that sort of brownie ramp on the fourth line of that image. So if I just grab those three, you can see I've selected his lips and I'll just map them to, how about these three here? Maybe I'll do it to these three. There we go. And boom, I can okay that. Blammo. And now I have a green imp, which is awesome. So I'm just going to save that. Now I can apply this to the entire set if I want. I just right click on them. I go right click and I go graphics, color remap, and it's saved it. And you can even save these out as text files to load up later. So you can have like a whole bunch of translation tables already organized that go, oh, you know what? I really wish I had purple cacodemons. You get it all set up, save it, and then it's done. So I can okay that, right? And now my entire imp is green. And he's looking pretty good. Now there's even more you can do. So if I come down, let's go down to, so this is the first of the damage sprites. So you've got, you know, him falling over and you've got him giving out. Now, if we look at these sprites, this is a particularly easy one to edit because he's got his eyes shut here and there's only gore values, which means all the red, every single thing that is red can be changed without affecting everything else. So let's go down to say this bottom gore palette here, and I'm just going to go recolor. Now, the thing is, you got to be a bit careful here because these translation ranges, if they have overlapping numbers, they're going to retranslate the same values. Okay, so for example, if we look at this guy, he has red in his mouth and eyes. So if we apply a translation table, if we just sort of if we just added more translation tables to turn all the gore into a different color, then it would probably recolor his mouth and eyes as well. So what I like to do is I like to save them like I've done now. So this has been edited and remapped, right? And then I just do a second translation table, which is completely separate. So for example, I'll just get rid of all of these, and I stick it onto pink so I can see what I'm doing. And once again, we just got to flip her over, mouse over, and try and find the colors. And if we look, there's actually two separate lines. Some of the colors are coming out of this load, and that's sort of like the highlights, right? And some of them are coming out of this run here, and that's the majority of the deeper colors. So there's actually two translations we need to do for gore. So what I like to do, I've got it on pink, and I kind of just click around one at a time until I find a color that changes. There. So that's the first pixel that changes, right? So it's above the yellow there. And then I go the opposite way, and you can see it changes all the way up to the darkest red. So yellow to darkest red is our highlight colors. So we are going to translate them to blue. Now, one of the cool things about the way that the Slade color remap works is that even though we've selected a lot more colors than we're mapping them to, it still kind of works it out for us, which is really, really cool. I love the way that works. So if I want it to be a bit darker, I can just do that. How about that? Oh, we'll make it just a little bit lighter. There we go. Bam. Okay, so that's our first translation range. So we'll just add another one. We do the same thing. I go map it to pink, and I come down here, and I find the first value that changes these colors to pink. And it's that one there. So let's just map them. Why isn't this one changing? It must be further down. Well, let's just grab all of them. So we'll just grab all those, and we'll map them to the blues as well. Ooh, I always do that. I always drag it on the same thing. You got to drag it on the bottom one. There we go. You blammo, like that. And it's looking pretty good. And we can change the darkness by changing the amount that we go. That looks pretty cool. So I'm just going to OK that. Yoink. And you can see we've got beautiful green guys. Oh, no gibbing. And we've got some nice gibbing. And it's all nice and blue. Very, very cool. So one thing to note, though, is that the bullets themselves have their own color spawns if you're doing changes to how the gore frames work. So if I just machine gun these guys, you'll see that there's still red dots before they bleed blue. Right? So there's still, you know, I mean, it's modding. You still have stuff you've got to do to get it to work perfectly. That's because the actual red bullet splat is coming from the gun and the bullet stuff itself, not from the graphic sprites we edited. I'm just going to do one more thing here. I'm just going to do another color remap here. I'm going to get rid of all of them. I'm just going to find that one little pixel that's doing his eyeballs. So it's probably around here somewhere, I'd imagine. Maybe not. Maybe it's down here. Yeah, it's in here somewhere. It's one of these. So you could mouse over it, but it's pretty hard to get the mouse in the right position because you can't zoom in, unfortunately. There we are. It's that one there. I'm just going to go boom and turn them yellow, bright yellow. Give him yellow eyes. Bam. And then I'm going to apply that to everything except the gore frames. Now, trying to find that one little pixel was a real pain. So there is actually a better way to do that. Let me just go back into the DoomWad and I'll get the chain gun guy. We paste him in And because of the remap palette, his skin's coming in purple. Now, remember when I said that there's actually some editing tools here? We've got the draw pixels, erase pixels, and we've actually got a translate pixels brush, which is really, really handy. So if I load up the set brush translation, it's the exact same color remap interface, but this time we're setting a brush, not editing the whole image. So what I can actually do here is I can select really large ranges, like say this, all this red here, and I'll set it to, how about this brown? No, I'll set it to this gray maybe. Yeah, I can set it to this gray. Very, very nice. Just like before, but when we hit OK, nothing actually changes. And that's because it's set to the brush. So I can now click on the brush, and sometimes when you paint, nothing happens. And that's because if you look where it says brush, there's a little button, and often this is completely invisible for some reason, but you can still click there. And you click there and select your brush size. So I'm going to select a large brush size. I'll select 5.5. And now when I click to paint, it's actually painting the translation only on the pixels that I'm telling it to, right? Now, obviously I'm just painting the whole armor, so I'd probably do it the way I showed you with the green skin of the imp. But what if I want to touch up an existing graphic? Because sometimes, you know, you'll do all your things and you'll be going through and you want to do some edits, but it's just easier to edit on the one thing. So there you go. Those eyes, some of those eyes haven't changed. We have to fix that up. So what I can do now is in this tool, I'll go to the translate pixels and I'm going to go set brush. And this time I'm going to grab this entire palette range and set it to yellow like that and go OK. And notice nothing's actually changed because we're in the painting tool. Brush size. Now we're going to take a 1 square, then I'm just going to go bam, bam, and it's just translated that 1 pixel to those new colors and left the rest. And now I can just come down here and do my adjustments for any of the missing eyes that we didn't get to translate correctly. And now we've got all the eyes mixed up, and that's just through the color transform paintbrush rather than the actual, you know, doing it all manually. So we'll just save that. And finally, now that we've actually moved all the translation pixels from that purple color to this green and the yellows and the reds, which has got nothing to do with that line, we can actually just remove this playpal and remove the color map. So the WAD is now going to be using the default Doom 2 stuff. Save that and we can run this. And now you can see we're in the game and everything, all the colors look fine because we haven't changed anything in the playpal at all. The palette is exactly the same. So all the original graphics are now working fine. But, now we've still got our new guys. Pretty cool. Sweet. Right, so that is basically about it. I was going to do some stuff on sRGB applications, but because this went so long, I'm going to put it in the next one, and I swear that's going to be the last one for a while. But I hope that was interesting, and I will see you guys next time.